Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Can't Stop, Won't Stop, A History of the Hip-Hop Generation, by Jeff Chang. Narrated by Mirron Willis. Longing on a large scale is what makes history. Don DeLillo. Introduction by DJ Kool Herc. When I started DJing back in the early 70s, it was just something that we were doing for fun. I came from the people's choice, from the street. If the people like you, they will support you, and your work will speak for itself. The parties I gave happened to catch on. They became a rite of passage for young people in the Bronx. Then the younger generation came in and started putting their spin on what I had started. I set down the blueprint, and all the architects started adding on this level and that level. Pretty soon, before we even knew it, it had started to evolve. Most people know me as DJ Kool Herc, but sometimes when I introduce myself to people, I just tell them that my friends call me Herc. Later on, they might ask, "Are you that Herc?" My thing is, come and meet me as who I am. My head is not swollen. I don't try to front on people. If you like what I do, if you like me playing music or giving parties, hey, that's what I do for my friends and people. It's what I've always done. To me, hip-hop says, come as you are. We are a family. It ain't about security. It ain't about bling-bling. It ain't about how much your gun can shoot. It ain't about $200 sneakers. It is not about me being better than you or you being better than me. It's about you and me connecting one to one. That's why it has universal appeal. It has given young people a way to understand their world, whether they are from the suburbs or the city or whatever. Hip-hop has also created a lot of jobs that otherwise wouldn't exist. But even more important, I think hip-hop has bridged the culture gap. It brings white kids together with black kids, brown kids with yellow kids. They all have something in common that they love. It gets past the stereotypes and people hating each other because of those stereotypes. People talk about the 4 hip-hop elements: DJing, b-boying, MCing, and graffiti. I think that there are far more than those. The way you walk, the way you talk, the way you look, the way you communicate. Back in my era, we had James Brown and civil rights and black power. You did not have people calling themselves hip-hop activists, but these people today are talking about their era. They have a right to speak on it the way they see it coming up. Hip-hop is the voice of this generation. Even if you didn't grow up in the Bronx in the 70s, hip-hop is there for you. It has become a powerful force. Hip-hop binds all these people, all of these nationalities, all over the world, together. But the hip-hop generation is not making the best use of the recognition and the position that it has. Do we realize how much power hip-hop has? The hip-hop generation can take a stand collectively and make a statement. There are a lot of people who are doing something positive, who are doing hip-hop the way it was meant to be done. They are reaching young people, showing them what the world could be. People living together and having fun. But too often, the ones that get the most recognition are those emphasizing the negative, and I think a lot of people are scared to speak on issues. Keeping it real has become just another fad word. It sounds cute, but it has been pimped and perverted. It ain't about keeping it real. It's got to be about keeping it right. For example, rappers want you to be so bling-bling. Are you really living a luxurious life? Don't you have other issues? What things touch you? That's what we'd like to hear rappers speak about. Start a dialogue with people. Talk about things going on in the neighborhood. Music is sometimes a medication from reality. And the only time you get a dialogue is when tragedy happens. When Tupac or Biggie or Jam Master Jay died. That's when people wanted to have a dialogue. It was too late. Not enough people are taking advantage of using hip-hop as a way to deal with serious issues, as a way to try to change things before a tragedy strikes. We have the power to do that. If Jay-Z comes out one day with his shirt hanging this way, or LL Cool J comes out with one leg of his pants rolled up, The next day, everyone is doing the same thing. If we decide one day to say that we're not going to kill somebody senselessly, everyone will follow. I don't want to hear people saying that they don't want to be role models. You might already have my son's attention. Let's get that clear. When I'm telling him, don't walk that way, don't talk that way, you're walking that way and talking that way. Don't just be like a drug dealer, like another pusher. Cut the crap. That's escape. That's the easy way out. You have the kid's attention. I'm asking you to help me raise him up. You might be living lovely, but if you came out of the neighborhood, there was somebody who was there to guide you when you needed it. Someone that said, son, here's $2. You might have beat up on the ghetto to get out of it, but what have you done for the ghetto lately? How can you come from nothing to get something, but yet at the same time still do dirt to tear it all down? Hip-hop has always been about having fun, but it's also about taking responsibility. And now we have a platform to speak our minds. Millions of people are watching us. Let's hear something powerful. Tell people what they need to hear. How will we help the community? What do we stand for? What would happen if we got the hip-hop generation to vote? Or to form organizations to change things? That would be powerful. Hip-hop is a family. So everybody has got to pitch in. East, west, north, or south. We come from one coast, and that coast was Africa. This culture was born in the ghetto. We were born here to die. We're surviving now, but we're not yet rising up. If we got a problem, we've got to correct it. We can't be hypocrites. That's what I hope the hip-hop generation can do. To take us all to the next level by always reminding us it ain't about keeping it real. It's about keeping it right. Prelude. Generations are fictions. The act of determining a group of people by imposing a beginning and ending date around them is a way to impose a narrative. They are interesting and necessary fictions because they allow claims to be staked around ideas. But generations are fictions nonetheless, often created simply to suit the needs of demographers, journalists, futurists, and marketers. In 1990, Neil Howe and William Strauss, both baby boomers and self-described social forecasters, set forth a neatly parsed theory of American generations in their book Generations, The History of America's Future, 1584 to 2069. They named their own generation prophets, idealists who came of age during a period of awakening, and their children's generation heroes, who, nurtured by their spiritually attuned parents, would restore America to a high era. In between were nomads, inhabiting a present they described as an unraveling. What Howe and Strauss's self-flattering theory lacked in explanatory power, it made up for with the luck of good timing. The release of Generations intersected with the media's discovery of Generation X, a name taken from the title of a book by Douglas Copeland that seems to sum up for boomers the mystery of the emerging cohort. Howe and Strauss's book was pitched as a peek into the future. Cycles of history, they argued, proceed from generational cycles, giving them the power to prophesize the future. Certainly, history loops, but generations are fictions, used in larger struggles over power. There is nothing more ancient than telling stories about generational difference. A generation is usually named and framed first by the one immediately preceding it. The story is written in the words of shock and outrage that accompany two revelations: "Whoa, I'm getting old," and "Damn, who are these kids?" Boomers seem to have had great difficulty imagining what could come after themselves. It was a boomer who invented that unfortunate formulation, the end of history. By comparison, everything that came after would appear as a decline, a simplification, a corruption. Up until recently, our generation has mainly been defined by the prefix post. We have been post-civil rights, post-modern, post-structural, post-feminist, post-black, post-soul. We're the poster children of post, the leftovers in the dirty kitchen of yesterday's feast. We have been the baby boom echo. Is baby boom narcissists in the house? We have been Generation X. Now they even talk about Generation Y. And why? Probably because Y comes after X. And so by the mid-1990s, many young writers, sick of what Howe and Strauss and their peers had wrought, took to calling themselves the hip-hop generation. In 2002, in an important book, The Hip-Hop Generation, Young Blacks and the Crisis in African American Culture, Bakari Kitwana forged a narrow definition. African Americans born between 1965 and 1984, a period bracketed by the passage of the Civil Rights Act and the assassination of Malcolm X on one end, and hip-hop's global takeover during the peak of the Reagan/Bush era at the other. Kitwana grappled with the implications of the gap between blacks who came of age during the civil rights and black power movements, and those who came of age with hip-hop. His point was simple. A community cannot have a useful discussion about racial progress without first taking account of the facts of change. Folks got bogged down once again in the details. How could one accept a definition of a hip-hop generation which excluded the culture's pioneers like Kool Herc and Afrika Bambaataa for being born too early, or one that excluded those who had come to claim and transform hip-hop culture but were not black or born in America? Exactly when a hip-hop generation began, and whom it includes, remains quite appropriately a contested question. My own feeling is that the idea of the hip-hop generation brings together time and race, place and polyculturalism, hot beats and hybridity. It describes the turn from politics to culture, the process of entropy and reconstruction. It captures the collective hopes and nightmares, ambitions and failures of those who would otherwise be described as post-this or post-that. So you ask, when does the hip-hop generation begin? After DJ Kool Herc and Afrika Bambaataa. Whom does it include? Anyone who is down. When does it end? When the next generation tells us it's over. This is a non-fiction history of a fiction. A history, some mystery, and certainly no prophecy. It's but one version, this dub history, a gift from those who have illuminated and inspired, all defects of which are my own. There are many more versions to be heard. May they all be. Jeff Chang, Brooklyn and Berkeley, January 1998 to March 2004. Loop 1. Babylon is Burning, 1968 to 1977. Ladies and gentlemen, there it is. Chapter 1. Necropolis, the Bronx, and the Politics of Abandonment. When you come to the ballpark, you're walking into a place that is all deception and lies. There's nothing truthful at the ballpark. Except the game. Barry Bonds. It was a bad night for baseball in the South Bronx. An angry Arctic wind, an ominous new moon. The largest crowd of the year filled Yankee Stadium for the second game of the 1977 World Series. The New York Yankees versus the Los Angeles Dodgers. East Coast versus West. The Yankees were the best team money could buy. When Major League Baseball raised the curtain on free agency before the 1977 season, owner George Steinbrenner opened his checkbook and with a $3 million offer, landed the biggest prize in the game, home run slugger Reggie Jackson, the son of a Negro leaguer who had received $7 a game. For the Yankees, who did not sign their first black player until 9 years after Jackie Robinson broke the color line, Jackson was their most expensive signing in history. Manager Billy Martin seethed. He had opposed signing Jackson. He refused to attend the press conference introducing Jackson in pinstripes. As the season began, he cold-shouldered the star, sometimes benched him. When he was upset, he called Jackson boy. Jackson got along no better with his new teammates. Some resented his salary, even though white players, like Catfish Hunter, had million-dollar contracts as well. They thought Jackson too flamboyant, flaunting his blonde girlfriends in the Rolls-Royce Corniche that Steinbrenner had bought him. But it was his arrogance that finally turned them. In a magazine article, Jackson dissed Captain Thurman Munson, saying, "This team, it all flows from me. I've got to keep it all going. I'm the straw that stirs the drink." Maybe he had not meant to say it that way. Maybe he was just telling the truth. Jackson's teammates stopped talking to him. During a June game against the Red Sox, the tension finally exploded, after Jackson missed a fly ball in right field. Martin angrily pulled him off the field. Jackson trotted slowly and angrily for the dugout. "What did I do?" he asked Martin. "What did you do?" Martin barked. "You know what the fuck you did." "I wasn't loafing, Billy," Jackson protested. "Nothing I could ever do would please you. You never wanted me on this team. You don't want me now. Why don't you just admit it?" "I ought to kick your fucking ass," Martin screamed. Jackson lost it. "Who the fuck do you think you're talking to, old man?" The Yankee coaches leaped up to restrain Martin from punching Jackson while TV cameras rolled. That night in his hotel room, Jackson came to tears in front of a small group of news reporters. "It makes me cry, the way they treat me on this team. The Yankee pinstripes are Ruth and Garrick and DiMaggio and Mantle, and I'm a nigger to them," he moaned. "I don't know how to be subservient." It had been 30 seasons since Jackie Robinson, playing one game, had changed another, by taking Ebbets Field in Dodger blue. The post-war thrust away from racial segregation began with the pivotal cultural moment when Robinson stepped out of that formerly whites-only dugout. After Robinson retired, he brought his commitment to integration into politics. The 1960s had begun. The Dodgers were in Los Angeles, and Ebbets Field was sprouting boxy brick and concrete beanstalks, honoring Jackie with towering public housing projects. American politics was lurching to catch up with the changes already felt in the culture, and Robinson's legacy was being openly questioned. In 1963, one of those inquisitors was Congressman Adam Clayton Powell, who made a point of appearing at a massive Harlem rally with a firebrand named Malcolm X. A contemporary of Robinson, Malcolm had been in jail while Jackie was on the field. Both had seen the worst of America. Both wanted the best for their children, but their lives had not brought them to the same conclusions. At the heart of the issue was the age-old African-American question: shall we fight for the nation or build our own? Shall we save America or ourselves? Robinson denounced the congressman for aligning with the black Muslim. "You have grievously set back the cause of the Negro," Robinson wrote in an open letter to Powell on the pages of the New York Amsterdam News. "For you are aware, and have preached for many years, that the answer for the Negro is to be found not in segregation or in separation, but by his insistence upon moving into his rightful place, the same place as that of any other American within our society." On the same pages, Malcolm X himself responded to Robinson. "You have never shown appreciation for the support given you by the Negro masses, but you have a record of being very faithful to your white benefactors. Later that year in Washington, D.C., Martin Luther King, Jr. gave his I Have a Dream speech. In Harlem, days of street protests over education and poverty gave way to nights of clashes between white police and black youths, the start of the long, hot summers that gripped America the rest of that turbulent decade. As the 60s drew into the 70s, King and X were gone. The well of faith and idealism that had sustained the movements against the forces of rationalism and violence drained, and a lot of black dreams, integrationist or nationalist, simply burned. For the next generation, there would be no more water for the fires. Robinson would approvingly quote his former adversary, "Jackie, in days to come, your son and my son will not be willing to settle for the things we are willing to settle for." So there was Reggie Jackson in a finely appointed hotel room in the summer of 1977, slugging behind both civil rights and black power, playing one game and the other. I'm a big black man with an IQ of 160, making $700,000 a year, and they treat me like dirt, Jackson said. They've never had anyone like me on their team before. 4 months later, when baseball fans filed into Yankee Stadium for the World Series on that cold, hungry October night, many debts of history were waiting to be redeemed. New Yorkers had never forgotten Jackie Robinson's Dodgers, or forgiven owner Walter O'Malley for pushing Robinson out and stealing the team from Brooklyn. To them, the very existence of the Los Angeles Dodgers represented the triumph of greed and betrayal. But the Dodgers were like a red Corvette in a Malibu morning, a team perpetually speeding into the future. Home runs came easily to them. 4 of their hitters had topped 30 homers that year. 2 of them were black. 2 were white. The Yanks had already taken Game 1, but in this game, by the 3rd inning, 3 Dodgers had already hit Catfish Hunter's pitches to the beer-drenched bleachers. In 4 at-bats, Jackson never even got on base. It was useless. Down by 4 runs, the Yankees would never catch up. The crowd turned ugly. Smoke bombs traced slow arcs in the air, and firecrackers crackled off the concrete. Drunks tossed their cups over the top deck rails. Fans hurdled the retaining walls and dashed across the outfield, stopping play. Fights erupted in the stands. The winds picked up, howling in from the west. Outside the stadium, over the right field stands, past the most secure parking lot in the South Bronx, just a mile to the east, wisps and curls of gray smoke drifted into the sky. Then the gusts caught, and ashen clouds billowed. A small crowd gathered at Melrose and 158th Street for a 5-alarm show, a passing distraction as ordinary as a World Series. Beyond the game, the abandoned Public School 3 was aflame and imploding. Ladies and gentlemen, there it is. Howard Cosell told 60 million viewers as the helicopter cameras zoomed in on PS3. The Bronx is burning. Mass movements. In 1953, the future of the Bronx could be seen along the 7-mile man-made trench cutting through it. Once an unbroken continuum of cohesive, diverse communities, the trench was now the clearing for the Cross-Bronx Expressway, a modernist catastrophe of massive proportions. As the gray concrete slab plowed from the east into the South Bronx toward Manhattan, it left behind a wake of environmental violence. Where once apartment buildings or private homes had stood, were now hills of rubble, decorated with ripped open bags of rotting garbage that had been flung atop them. The historian Robert Caro wrote, "Over the rumble of the bulldozers came the staccato machine-gun-like banging of jackhammers and occasionally the dull concussion of an exploding dynamite charge. These were the sounds of progress." Forward in the expressway's path, the Irish and Jewish families that had once occupied well-appointed, if not plush, lower-middle-class apartments had been given months to relocate, with a paltry $200 per room as compensation. In the meantime, as they struggled to find new quarters in a city with few vacancies, they huddled in heatless, condemned buildings. The man responsible for all of this was named Moses. Robert Moses, the most powerful modern urban builder of all time, led the white exodus out of the Bronx. It began with a master plan designed in 1929 by the New York Regional Plan Association. The business interests behind the master plan wanted to transform Manhattan into a center of wealth, connected directly to the suburbs through an encircling network of highways carved through the heart of neighborhoods in the outer boroughs. Buoyed by a post-World War II surge of government investment, Moses rose to unparalleled power. He saw his immortality fixed in the roads. They were monuments to a brutal kind of efficiency. The Cross-Bronx Expressway would allow people to traverse the Bronx from the suburbs of New Jersey through Upper Manhattan to the suburbs of Queens in 15 minutes. In engineering terms, it was the most difficult road ever built. Caro wrote, "The path of the Great Road lay across 113 streets, avenues, and boulevards, sewers and water and utility mains numbering in the hundreds, one subway and 3 railroads, 5 elevated rapid transit lines, and 7 other expressways or parkways, some of which were being built by Moses simultaneously. More important, 60,000 Bronx residents were caught in the crosshairs of the expressway. Moses would bulldoze right over them. There are more people in the way. That's all," he would say, as if lives were just another mathematical problem to be solved. "There's very little real hardship in the thing." In Manhattan's ghettos, using urban renewal rights of clearance to condemn entire neighborhoods, he scared off thriving businesses and uprooted poor African American, Puerto Rican, and Jewish families. Many had no choice but to come to the places like East Brooklyn and the South Bronx, where public housing was booming, but jobs had already fled. Moses's point, one of his associates said, was that if you cannot do something that is really substantial, it is not worth doing. In his grand ambitions, high modernism met maximum density. Vast housing complexes were designed on the idyllic-sounding tower-in-a-park model, a concept that had been advanced by the modernist architect Le Corbusier as part of his vision of a radiant city. Bronx River houses and Millbrook houses opened with 1,200 units each, Bronxdale houses with over 1,500 units, and Patterson houses with over 1,700 units. To Moses, the tower-in-a-park model was a blackboard equation that neatly solved thorny problems. Open space in the urban grid, housing for the displaced poor, with a tidy cost efficiency. It also happened to support the goals of slum clearance, business redevelopment, and the decimation of the tenants' union movement. So, in the New York area's construction explosion of the 1950s and 60s, middle-class whites got sprawling, prefab, white picket fence, whites-only Levittown suburbs, while working-class strugglers and strivers got 9 or more monotonous slabs of housing, rising out of isolating, desolate, soon-to-be crime-ridden parks. By the end of the decade, half of the whites were gone from the South Bronx. They moved north to the wide-open spaces of Westchester County, or the northeastern reaches of Bronx County. They followed Moses's Cross-Bronx and Bruckner expressways to the promise of ownership in one of the 15,000 new apartments in Moses's co-op city. They moved out to the cookie-cutter suburbs that sprouted along the highways in New Jersey, and
Sample complete. Ready to continue?